Hi, my sweet friends. It's Nana Rose. I was going to share a little bit about my Grandpa Davis because this will be a short video today, is being brought to you by the word resilience. And my Grandpa Davis was of Irish descent. He was redheaded, so was my mother, and my hair would go red when I would be out in the sun before it was gray. And he was just a crusty old guy. He worked on the railroad. He swore like a sailor. And he had a lot of health issues. Every time I would come home to visit, which I made it once a year after I turned 18 and moved to the West Coast. Generally, I made it home every year. And every year, Grandpa would have been in the hospital with a heart attack, he had a cancer scare. He ended up developing macular degeneration, so he was pretty much blind. He could tell somebody was there, but he could see there was a person there, but he couldn't tell who it was. And when I'd leave, I'd hug Grandpa. I was the oldest grandchild, and he was so good to me. And he told me one time, he said, "You know I own you." And I said, "No, I didn't know that." And he said, "Well, I paid the hospital bill when your mother had you." And he said, "Your mom and dad didn't have the money, so I paid it." And he said, "So I bought you. I own you." And it made me feel so loved. I mean, I know some people would be offended by that word, but I knew, because Grandpa didn't share love a lot. You know, he didn't speak of love. But he let me know that I was loved. And generally it was through teasing, and I'd have an asthma attack and he'd come to take me to the hospital because we generally didn't have a car, and I'd be laying there, could hardly breathe, and Grandpa would say, "Come on, Gordhead, get up, let's run around the house, I'll race you." He was just a character. And he ended up being murdered, and I'll do a video exclusively about Grandpa someday before too long. But he just was tough, but he was still a good man. He would come over to the house at times when my dad had been drinking, and my mom, and maybe we had no money for groceries, and all of a sudden Grandpa would just show up at the door, and he would have a bag of groceries, and he'd say, "Maxine," that was my mom's name. He'd go, "Maxine, I brought some beans. Will you fix some beans and biscuits," or whatever. So it was a way of giving us food, but he made it seem like he was asking a favor and asking my mom to fix a meal for him. And I always loved that about him. I loved that he just kept that attitude no matter what happened. And that's why when I share things about my childhood, that I say, please don't write to me and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry for what you went through," because I'm not. Now I'm not. I was at the time. It was awful. But now I'm not, because I know I wouldn't be the person that I am and have the heart that I have if I had not gone through what I did. You can either go through life and become bitter because of the challenges, or you can just laugh at his face, which is, I've told you I have a twisted sense of humor, and that's how I deal with things. It's just, I just try to make something funny out of difficult situations. I was up most of the night last night, worried about a sweet friend of mine. I have made so many wonderful friends online but especially in through the Griffin Scope family. There's the neatest community there. That channel has just amazing people in it. And I was going to look at this before I started taping, but I'm dealing with a time frame here that you'll understand why in a minute. But I have a list that I keep of people who need prayer and support in that group, people who are going through horrible things. And yet, some of the ones going through the worst times are the ones that seem to be the most loving, the most giving. They don't seem hardened at all by it. And I just am always amazed at that. There's I hesitate to even get into specifics because there are so many that I just admire so much. People who have gone through horrible times, somebody going through a divorce right now that I know she's just having a rough time, and yet she's sharing her love all the time in the community. There's a gentleman in Australia with MS that I would have never known, just somehow it came up in conversation in a comment. But he's so loving and so kind and so positive. And he recently lost his mother, and he just still, you know, he and his brother had been taking care of her, and he still just has an amazing attitude. And I have a friend, Dee Dee, that has been battling a situation for about 1.5 years now. And she has a wound that occurred from surgery that hasn't healed properly. And the doctors just don't seem to want to deal with it. They keep sending her to a wound clinic. She has to have the bandages changed every 2 days, and it's getting larger, and it's getting infected again, and yet nobody seems to want to do anything. She's in Canada, and they have a national health system there. I think that's what it's called. But anyway, private pay is not an option. I've just come up with so many ideas and thrown out to her. Could we do this? Could we do this? Could we do this? Could we get some help this way? Get somebody to pay attention. My personal opinion, and this is my opinion, is something maybe went wrong during a surgery, and that's why it's not healing properly. And doctors tend to want to protect each other. And I don't know if people aren't wanting to get involved because of that or what it is. She waited 7.5 hours. The wound care clinic told her to go to emergency because it was getting so much worse. It was getting deeper and larger. So she went to emergency, waited 7.5 hours. And the doctor who came in happened to be the doctor that had either done the surgery or had seen her before about the problem and did nothing. And so she said she knew she was doomed as soon as that doctor walked in. And the doctor actually had the gall to say, "What are you here for?" And she ended up giving her, the doctor ended up giving her half a pain pill, no prescription, but just half a pain pill. Told her to go home, get some sleep. She'd probably feel better in the morning. Well, the wound is so painful and so large and in a location on her upper leg near her hip that she can hardly move, much less sleep and roll around like you do without it causing pain. So to tell somebody to go home and get some rest and they'll feel better was just ludicrous. She asked her GP if they could order a CAT scan and take a look at it. nobody seems to know what's causing it. Nobody seems to, I don't know, they don't do anything for her. And I'm just so worried about her. And she is having a CAT scan today. It's Thursday, the 4th of August. She is having it at 4:30 Eastern time here in the United States and in Canada, where she's at. And I know that there are people in the Griffin-Scope community. I posted there, but I wanted to post it here for anybody who's not in that community or doesn't see the readings for the last day or so, to know this is happening. And if at that time, if you're in a position at 4:30 Eastern time in the U.S., if you can take time to just visualize Dee Dee getting her CAT scanned, and that it will discover what's wrong, or that it will bring some doctor to the forefront who will do something for her. I really, truly am alarmed for her, and she doesn't know what else to do. And she is like my grandpa. She is like the gentleman with MS, with just resilience. I call her several times a week. I try to do it every day just for moral support. Not a long conversation, but we always tend to laugh and try to make a joke about things, because that's all you can do at some point in life. You either cry or you laugh. And she has literally laughed through the tears several times on the phone with me. And she is just one of the strongest persons I have ever known. And it just breaks my heart what's happening. So if at that time you could envision her getting this CAT scan, and that they find what's wrong, and if you can envision this wound healing and the infection going away. They don't even have her on antibiotics right now. She's got an appointment next Tuesday to see the doctor, and she'll ask for antibiotics then. You know, it's just a mess, and I don't know what else to do other than ask that people who believe, please pray, and people who want to send positive energy, please do that. People who believe in visualization, please do that. I just felt like if people had some of the specifics, they might be able to visualize a little better. She is a sweetheart and just one of the strongest women I've ever known. And I just hope that maybe the power of tons of prayer and positive energy and healing thoughts can help her, because I don't know what else can. I guess that's it for right now. It's not a funny video today, but my heart is just very full, and I so appreciate all the people that I have met who are survivors, who have gone through and are going through such difficult times and still have love in their heart for other people. They haven't been hardened by things. It just reminds me of the widow's mite in the Bible, that, you know, the widow had so little to give, and yet she gave her all. And I feel like that's how some of these people are. They're having to give their all, but they still lovingly give of themselves and their spirit. And so for what it's worth, I'd appreciate any prayers for her. And just love and hugs till next time. And I appreciate anything that you send her way. That will help. I really do. Love and hugs till next time. Bye-bye.